Good evening. Welcome to the December 1st, 2020 school committee meeting. As always, these meetings are audio and video recorded. I call this meeting to order. We'll start with introductions in front of me.
Natalie Barrow, student representative.
Robert Mullen.
Good evening, Mike Moran.
Good evening, Mark Branco, Assistant Superintendent.
Hi, Mike Flanagan, Superintendent.
Ryan McMahon.
Becky Stanton.
Julie Bastucci.
Anthony Tenerella. Jeff Bowe.
Messina, Business Administrator.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will seek a motion to approve the meeting minutes of November 10th, 2020, school committee meeting minutes, November 10th, 2020, executive session minutes, the executive session minutes not to be released at this time.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries 7-0-0. Correspondence.
Yes, Mr. Chair. In your drive tonight, you'll find a letter from the Tyngsborough Teachers Association. It's a letter of concern that they have about the pandemic and where they're feeling at this time. So it's in your drive for all of you to review. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to take 5 out of order, share the success.
You got a second?
I'll second
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries 7-0-0. Natalie?
At THS, trimester exams are underway this week. Today, the Lakeview students finished their in-person exams and will reconvene with their exam schedule on Thursday and Friday to complete their remote exams. The Winslow students completed their remote exams and will be taking their in-person exams on Thursday and Friday. Report cards for trimester 1 grades will be going out on December 11th. The students are excited to begin their trimester 2 schedules next Monday, December 2nd. The December Students of the Month were named, and congratulations goes out to Tucker Carmichael, Molly McHugh, Eli McKenna, and Nama Perliger. Adopt a Family is holding a 50-50 raffle. Donations can be made through Venmo. More information on this can be found through the weekly updates and on the school's social media accounts. The National Honor Society is also working on the Adopt a Family project by holding a food drive and collecting monetary donations at the high school starting next week. Student Council finished up their Week of Unity, where they hung posters around the school in support of the following underrepresented groups, including support for multiculturalism and diversity, women in leadership, unpacking disability stereotypes, LGBTQ pride, and Black Lives Matter movement. This Week of Unity prompted awareness and accepted for these groups. THS students continue to be grateful for the enormous amount of effort and support the teachers, administration, nurse, and custodial staff continue to provide during this challenging time. At TMS, their grades for the first trimester close on Friday. They have had a positive response for the Adopt a Family virtual fundraiser that they have hosted. The 7th grade superstars for Team 7.1 are Emery Grammer, Neil Patel, Chase Preventure, Tessa Anderson, Lillian Wheeler, and Tristan Coward. The Baking Club has had 2 virtual cooking sessions where they learned to bake cupcakes and gingerbread cookies. And the Ski Club is now has a waiting list and is looking for some snow. At TES, they kicked off their annual Adopt a Family fundraiser while holding holiday spirits. Principal Kavanaugh would like to thank the families for their generosity and support. To date, they have raised over $1,200. TES has recently adopted IXL, which is an online progress monitoring tool. Most students have already begun the diagnostics portion in ELA and math. They are hopeful this will be another valuable tool which will provide them solid data to monitor students' progress. As Principal Kavanaugh stated, the staff continues to amaze us, and we visit classrooms. It reminds us that it is evident that our teachers are working tremendously hard to meet the needs of our in-person and remote learners. They are providing lessons that engage students. The diversity and methods of instruction might have changed, but the high-quality instruction is still going on in every classroom. And finally, thank you to Mrs. Anderson and the Tiger artists for decorating the tree for the town's Winslow Wonderland. Please stop by and check them out. And these are updates for all of the Tyngsborough schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie.
I think these updates get better every time she reports. Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make another motion to take agenda item 8A, unfinished business, out of order.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries 7-0-0. Dr. Flanagan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Branco will bring up the PowerPoint for this week. It's chock full of information. I intend to go through it slowly and thoroughly so that we're all on the same page. I know that you have an important decision to make. I want to give you as much information, context, and data as we possibly can. So before we do that, I think it's important that we kind of reflect a little bit. And I think the first thing we need to understand is our learning model drivers. We are always going to prioritize the health and safety of our students and staff. That's our number one goal. We will follow the recommendations of scientists and professionals and experts as we look at guidelines from CDC and DESE, and certainly Mass DPH. And we will always understand the context and try to interpret that data and make the best decision for all 1,600 kids in the Tyngsborough Public Schools. I think that has to be our top goal. We talk about context and data, and any information taken without context and data isn't worth the paper it's written on. So we need to understand the full picture. We understand what this means for Tyngsborough and the Tyngsborough Public Schools specifically. So we'll start with the metrics. We'll go to the next slide, Mark. The latest metrics for Tyngsborough. As you know, just to reflect, we had 3 weeks in the red back in October. As you know, the state changed the metrics. When they changed the metrics, our numbers continue to go up, and we had 2 weeks in the yellow. We've spent the past 2 weeks in the red, and early indications right now, we will be in the red again this Thursday. So it is a trend of 3 weeks in the red, even under new metrics at this time. So go to the next slide. So what does that look like in the Tyngsborough Public Schools specifically? This is a slide you've seen before, but I added some information to it because I think it's important. As you can see, since the first day of school, we've had 20 cases of community members identified in the Tyngsborough Public Schools. I highlighted the yellow. Those are current active cases right now. Actively, we have 4 cases at TMS, 1 at the high school, and 1 at TPS. When you see a communication come from TPS, that is a district-wide position or somebody who works in multiple buildings. So we can't identify them as one school, just so you know. So right now, we have 6 active cases in the district, 20 total. I'd like you to go down to the state lab reporting system. I think that's an important data point. And I think it's important as you start to think about what's best for our school and our community. The state testing lab isn't as current as it could be. And that's important because that's a contextual factor that we need to consider, particularly as you think about Thanksgiving being last week. The information we had confirmation of a positive case last night, and that test was on November 23rd. So that's a 7-day lag in receiving test results. So that's an important contextual factor as we start to think about you have a December 15th meeting to make a vote about a learning model. That data won't be current at that point unless the state lab catches up. Now, I don't know why the state lab is falling behind right now. I'm assuming it's because of the influx of cases and increase in testing. I don't think it's necessarily a Thanksgiving holiday, but it might be. So it's just an important thing that we need to consider as we think about moving forward. The other thing I want you to look at, and I thought this was important, we took a snapshot of time. So we looked specifically at 3 dates, October 1st, November 2nd, because that was a Monday, and today, December 1st. And I wanted to specifically know the number of people in our community, our learning community, that were either in quarantine, in isolation, or didn't come to school because of COVID-related illness. And these are the numbers from those dates. On October, you can see at the elementary school, we had 11 people not come. The middle school had 6, and the high school had 3 individuals not report on October 1st. We move it out a month, November 2nd. The elementary school, we had 17 people not come to school. The middle school had 16, and the high school had 16 people not come to school. Move it out to today, December 1st. 25 people at the elementary school, 23 at the middle school, 16 at the high school. So again, just to provide a little context for you to understand what that one day looked like, the snapshot of that one day. Cumulatively, since September, We've had 208 people impacted at the elementary school not report to school for a day. 108 at the middle school and 129 at the high school. We'll move to the next slide. Go back to the November 10th meeting. I was unable to make it, but I just wanted to reflect on a couple of those slides because I think they're important. At that time, we know that the governor and the commissioner have prioritized in-person learning, and they changed the mass metrics. And they changed the color code, and we talked about this already. I don't need to go into this at depth. Go to the next slide. We know also at that meeting, there were things that we as a local community needed to consider. We needed to consider what relief, if any, was going to be provided for transportation. I will tell you this, tomorrow, I am on a 1:30 webinar with Professor Jared Allen, who works at the Harvard Public School, Chan Public School, School of Public Policy Health. And he's going to give updated guidance on preventative measures for transportation. Now, whether these measures are adopted by DESE or Mass DPH, I don't know, but he's certainly a leading expert on it, and he's been supported by DESE. So I'll have more information about transportation tomorrow after that webinar. We also know that we need to continue to prioritize and protect cohorts and think about interactions between cohorts and cross-cohorting kids. We know that no matter what, given what we just saw in terms of quarantine and people not being able to come to school, remote learning must remain an option for all of our kids. They have to have that option in case they are in close contact or identified and need to stay out. We also know that all our classrooms are set up with 6 feet of spacing, and we know that our FY21 budget is what it is. It's not going to grow at this point. We also said on November 10th, next slide, Mark, that we fundamentally believe that in-person instruction cannot be replicated through remote learning. We know that kids are better served when they're in their classroom with teachers. And I think kids know that they're better served when they're in their classroom with teachers. As evidenced in all school-based presentations, and we just saw a great one here tonight, and Natalie was one of the biggest cheerleaders for it. Kids want to be in school. They want more in-person time in school. We've identified and expressed our concern about our youngest learners on Chromebooks for extended periods of time, pre-K and 1. And we're also concerned about some of the level of progress of some of our more needy students and what being out of school might do to them. And finally, on November 10th, our initial thoughts at that point were, we need to understand where families are. We need to understand the family perspective about in-person learning and explore expanding in-person learning time. We talked about Wednesdays. The committee talked to Mark and directed us to look at Wednesdays for both cohorts every other day. We looked at K-1 5 days a week. We still need to figure out what that transportation is going to look like and how do we prioritize or expand our categorization definition for students who are high needs of getting them more in-person time in the school. So that's where we were on November 10th. So let's get into the data. So we created a questionnaire, and it was a very simple questionnaire. Identify what learning model your student currently is, and give parents the option of, if we were to expand, what would their choice be? So if I were a kindergarten or first grade parent on this questionnaire, I had 3 options. I could choose remote, hybrid, or potentially 5 days a week in learning, as the committee directed us. If I were a student in grade 2 to 12, I had 2 options. I could stay remote or come into the hybrid plus model, which would be every other Wednesday. So those are the 2 options we had. So we put the survey out, and the response was incredible. In a matter of a week and a half, maybe not even a week and a half, maybe a week, we received 1,144 responses from 1,587 students, so 73% response rate, which is great. Our K-1 response rate, you can see, was 83%. And since this, we followed up with all but one of those families, because it's important for us to think about K-1. We need to know what the plan's going to be. 2 to 12, we did not follow up with those families. 71% said this is what we would do. So let's go a little bit deeper into that. Next slide, Mark. And let's start with 2 to 12 because that's just an easier conversation piece. We had 807 responses from students who were currently in the hybrid model. And if we were to include every other Wednesday, 96% of those responses said no problem. 4% of those responses said we would go from hybrid to remote if you included every other Wednesday. For our remote students, 93% of those parents said we would stay the course. We're going to stay with our current schedule. And 7% or 11 students said that if we went to a redesigned hybrid model, they would come to the hybrid model. So it's an offset of 24 students, grades 2 to 12. 35 out, 11 in. So let's go to the next slide. Parent question here, grade 1. Of the current hybrid students, we have 132 responses. 23% or 30 parents said we would keep it as is. 102 parents, or 77% of the parents, said we would opt for the 5 days a week. 0 parents said we would go to remote. So if we increase in-person time for students K to 1, not one parent said they would pull their kid out to remote. Current remote students, we had 47 responses. 42 of those parents, or 89%, said we're going to stay with the course, we're going to stay with our schedule. We like that. 4 said that they would move to the 2-day in-person hybrid model. I'm sorry, 4%. And 3, or 6%, said they would go to 5 days a week. So the bulk of the parents in the remote would stay right where they are. Let's go to the next slide. Mark, why don't you take the next 2 slides? Yep.
Before we move on,
Sorry, yep.
Dr. Flanagan,
Yep.
do we have the date on when this questionnaire was sent out and when the responses came back?
Off the top of my head, it came back on the 23rd. I think it went out the 16th. I think it was a weekend. It went out on Monday and came back and closed it the following Monday at noon.
Following Monday, because we extended it.
November 16th to November 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you.
So when we look at the grade 2 to 12 considerations, these bullets are taken clearly from the earlier slides, but it bears repeating that we do believe in-person instruction cannot be replicated through remote. We know that we had the Wednesdays in there for a particular reason when we started the model. However, at this point in time, we do believe, if you jump to the bottom bullet, that this bringing students back, even if it's just 1 day out of 10, if we can do it in a safe and appropriate way, we do believe that that 1 day is precious and will be a game changer for some kids and will impact them positively, socially, emotionally, and academically. I think it's important to know that there are other communities that have half-day hybrids and all kinds of funky rotations with kids coming in and out and not serving lunches. And when we talk to our peers in those other communities and we listen to parents in those other communities, people are struggling with that. And so I firmly believe as an educator that any extra time that we can add, if the time is right, will impact the child positively. So I know that there are people who have given us feedback, it's really only 1 day out of 10. If you add that up, what's the big deal? It's a big deal. It's a big deal to a kid who's sitting at home 3 times a week, and really needs to connect with friends, connect with teachers, get a little extra help one-on-one on a subject area, maybe actually do a lab for real in a classroom. It is a big deal. And so safely and appropriately, any extra time we can do, I think it's absolutely worth having that conversation. When we talk about the K to 1, the survey data alone is impressive. That we've heard from the parents clearly. They say, listen, we really would like the kids to come back to the best of our abilities, again, as safely as possible. The data that says nobody would jump in the other direction is fascinating. That we really feel like we need to get the youngsters in as well as we can. We believe that if we look at some kind of flex model where we have remote teacher only and hybrid teacher only and then in-person teacher, which is not what we currently have, it'll absolutely maximize teacher effectiveness, assist with student engagement, and I really believe that it will positively impact academic growth and achievement for kids. Personally, I've kind of turned on this. It's over time since August. When we built the model the way we built it for good reasons, for inclusionary practices, to keep kids in one group of classes with one teacher, it made sense. But now as we start to talk about expanding, and as we look at the data and look at the experiences our kids and our teachers are having with teaching multiple profiles of kids through a screen and in person, I'm not sure either group is getting the best of that teacher at that particular moment in time. So we do believe, as we explored the K1 option, that it's really important to be open-minded about our thinking and the potential of having a remote teacher with a group of remote kids and a hybrid teacher who manages that split kids and and another set of teachers who focus on the in-person kids in totality. That is a shift that we've gone through, I think, as leaders, and I think it's a shift that we believe is reacting to what we've experienced in the school so far.
I think one of the last bullet point there, we talk about, the goal would be in this new model, if we were to have a dedicated in-person teacher, a hybrid teacher, a remote teacher, would be keep kids to the best of our ability with their assigned teacher at this point, but we're not sure if that's even feasible. And I would just say that that's something that happens every year, every grade, when we have maternity leave. Our kids are always transitioning between teachers, so we would just have to make sure that any change we made in this manner would be done in a thoughtful way to support our kids and make it as smooth as possible.
And also let the parents know
Sure.
that is going to be happening, because that may be part of their decision too.
Sure.
If they really like this teacher and they, say, well, if you don't go into this model, you're not going to have this teacher, maybe that'll be part of their decision.
Sure. So we'll go to the next slide. Let's go a little bit deeper on the K-1. So just to provide, again, a little more background for you, our current K-1 grade learning models, on September, when we had the enrollment, we had 211 students. We had 157 students in the hybrid model and 54 in the remote model. Based on the input we've received, and again, we've contacted 207 out of 208 students, or maybe we got all 208 at this point, I'm not sure. We had 60% or 59%, 123 kids opting full in-person, 33 students staying hybrid, and 52 students, or 25%, staying remote. So in terms of the hybrid versus the hybrid and full in-person, those numbers are both 75%. There's not a huge shift there. There's no shift at all in remote in terms of 25%. The interesting number here is 123 out of 157 currently in-person students, 78% of those families said we would absolutely increase our in-person time. So there is a level of comfort with parents in the community, and I think that's just important for the committee to understand and consider. So as we go to the next slide and look at it, so this is our current makeup right now. We currently have 6 FTEs, kindergarten teachers. If we were to adopt these dedicated in-person teacher, the dedicated hybrid teacher, the dedicated remote teacher, we would need an additional teacher in grade 1, and we would need an additional grade teacher in kindergarten. You can see both 6 FTEs. So that would be an extra breakout of students in kindergarten and grade 1.
Don't you need 2 in grade 1?
5, 6, 7. Sorry, yep, and 2 in grade 1. Sorry, good math. So we're looking at an increase of potentially 3 teachers. Go to the next slide, Mark. So financial impact. Here are my 3 teachers. If we add 3 FTE Unit 8 positions, if we take an M1 salary of $55,103, prorated to potentially 104 days left of the school year, if this were to start January 4th, that would be an increase of $93,000 to the budget. If we add, additionally, by replacing some of the personnel that are potentially in-house, we may have to add additional paraprofessional support. If that's the case, we would need 2 paraprofessionals at a step 1, 23,361 prorated over 104 days would be $26,000. So again, this is not a final plan. This is just to give you a high-level number of what we're thinking right now, but it's potentially $120,000 to the budget. Yes?
And it's just salaries, too.
Just salaries.
That doesn't include benefits.
Correct. Just salaries. Yep. So there's a financial cost to this. And that's K-1. I mean, we know when we talked about this in August and we said, what's it going to cost to get every kid back across the district? The numbers were astronomical. So we're talking $120,000 for a half a year for 2 grades. So go to the next slide. Other things that the committee needs to consider. We know what Governor Baker's position is. He's made that clear. He wants full in-person. As a matter of fact, he said publicly that he hopes that school districts are planning between now and the winter break to return kids on January 4th full in-person. I think Commissioner Riley supports that as well. If you've watched the national media circuit, you've seen Dr. Fauci's promoting that. We've seen the New York City public schools. They're going back to school at this point. I think one of the things that came out from my organization was the MASS response was, there are still three big things we need to consider. We need proof from either CDC or DESE, or CDC, or excuse me, or DPH, that 6 feet is safe. We need to know what the transportation allowance is going to be. That's not yet been defined. And we know that every district in the state negotiated this with all their unions at the beginning of the school year. We're gonna have to open up that contract and have that conversation. And how many times can we do that throughout a school year? So it's just another thing to consider as we start to think about moving forward. I know that when we were originally in the red 2 months ago, we were saying, yeah, it's 1 or 2 cases, it's 13, 14 people. Our number's in the 50s now. I know we're testing more, but I anticipate it's gonna grow from there. So the other layer that concerns me is that 7-day lag in state testing to reporting. You know, so they're potentially people that have taken tests that don't have results yet. So they're carrying on with their normal lives. So it's just something we need to be cognizant of. Another thing I've heard from some of the people in the community, some parents have emailed me, is, you know, we value the cleaning between the cohorts, and we think that's important on that Wednesday. You know, whether you know, we're contracting with Stanley Steamer, who we have come in to give us a price on what that looked like, so just another increase to our budget. Whether we're you know, providing our own custodial maintenance personnel with overtime on either a Tuesday or a Wednesday, depending on when the cohort split is. There's certainly going to be a financial cost to that as well, in terms of increasing that Wednesday. So just another consideration, but another thing we need to wrestle with it and solidify before we come back to you on December 15th. So these are all conversations that we're having now, and we're trying to nail down some numbers and some information for you, but there are a lot of factors and a lot of moving parts. So we'll go to the next slide. You know, these are the 4 big talking points from November 10th. We need to do a family questionnaire. We've done that. We need to begin negotiations with the TTA. We had preliminary conversations. I've had preliminary conversations with Mark and I and the presidents of the association. You know, our administrative teams are working hard right now to look at what sketch and model plans could potentially look like. And we need to establish a timeline, tentative time of January 4th. You know, that's something that the committee needs to think about and have a conversation about. And then as I go out to the next slide, Mark, you know, we are scheduled for a December 15th meeting to talk about this further. We can certainly look at finalized plans. I can take any direction from the committee tonight and have some kind of vote. And I do want to just put on there for your own knowledge that our next 2 meetings in January 12th, Mrs. Lewenzik will be at that meeting. She will do our annual special education mid-year update, just to give us a sense of what we need to start thinking about in terms of budget for next year. And on January 26th, and Mr. Messina, maybe we're not even ready on January 26th at this point, because I'm just hearing they're going to approve another 112 budget, but at some point relatively soon thereafter, we're going to have to begin our FY21 budget discussion. So those are the upcoming meetings. Those are the thoughts for those meetings. And that's what lies ahead. So there's a lot of work to do and a lot of things to consider. But at this point, I think, go to the next slide, I think it's really just to answer any questions you may have or have some discussion about where we are as a learning community.
Mr. Chair, if I may, can we go back to the Tyngsborough slide with all the numbers on it? That one? No, the next one, where it breaks it down.
Yes, summary, yep.
When you look at our totals, Tyngsborough Elementary School 208, Middle School 108, High School 129. Is there a breakdown between staff and students as far as the numbers?
So we haven't done that.
All right.
Because that would be identifiable. No different than the cumulative number above it, that it's just a TPS community member or TMS community member. That was on the advice of our attorney.
Okay. I personally, at this point, and the rest of you, obviously I hope join in. With the numbers going the way they are today, I do not want to see us go full remote at all, ever, again. I think making a change to our current hybrid model at this point is a little premature. I personally would like to see us get through the holidays, revisit this in our January 12th meeting, and if we're 7 days behind in the reporting from the state, we don't even know what our numbers are today. We're going to have an influx as a result of Thanksgiving. We then have Christmas coming up. We have a week's vacation with New Year's, and then they're going to come back to school. I don't see a huge increase in everything I'm hearing on the news. Is saying that our students are not really catching it or transmitting it the way they originally thought they were going to. I'm really more concerned about our staff. So that's my feelings at this point.
So I had sort of three big takeaways. First of all, great job with the presentation. It's full of data. If you look at the dates on this slide here, the original notification was September 8th. If you go from September 8th to November 3rd, there were 9 notifications. There's an average of every 6.3 days. If you start with 11/8 through today, that's 12 notifications in 24 days. That's averaging every 2 days. So the frequency is 3 times what it was to begin the year. So to Tony's point, I think things are picking up. We're seeing more cases at a much more rapid pace. I'm a big believer in going, the more full in person we have, the better off we are. But I think with the holidays, they're predicting a Thanksgiving spike, Christmas spike, a New Year spike. I agree with Tony. We need to push this out till after the New Year. The other point, I asked about the date of the survey. So that survey was November 16th through 11/23. We were still in yellow until 11/19, and those numbers come out late on the Thursday. So I would bet the majority of those responses were provided while Tyngsborough was still designated yellow. So I question how valid some of those still are now that we're about to enter our 3rd week in red. I'm not comfortable adding any more in-person days at this time.
Dr. Flanagan, I was just curious, do you know how many students have opted to go full remote as a result of the Thanksgiving break or after the Thanksgiving break?
Yes, 5.
5.
5 have gone from hybrid to remote district-wide, and 1 has gone from remote to hybrid. So
That's a
4.
net 4, and that's in 2 days. So that's kind of telling to me. I know it's only 4, but it's still a lot. The other question I have is, when these numbers are being reported to us, do these include bus drivers and do they include cafeteria workers?
No,
They do not.
they do not. No.
Why is that?
Because we contract with Whitson's and we contract with D-Bus, so they're responsible for reporting to their own employer. And I know that, Scott and certainly Sandra at D have been communicating with Joe. And, we're in communication with them, but because they're not part of our direct community, they don't report for us, so it's a contracted service. If we hired somebody to come, fix something in the school, we wouldn't report them necessarily either. So these are only school employees and students.
Okay.
Julie, you've been trying to talk.
I look at it a little differently, I guess. I look at these numbers as one indication of, that the numbers of COVID being transmitted is going up, and we do see that. However, how about, is there any reporting from the health office saying how many of these children or staff that are in these numbers are asymptomatic? How many of these children have been hospitalized? Have there been any deaths from it? I'm sure there hopefully haven't, but that I look at it, I guess, in a little deeper.
So the answer is no.
Okay.
The easy answer is no. We don't go that deep
do any
on
of that
it.
tracking.
Essentially, we're into the Maven reporting system.
Okay.
So we look at that. Our lead nurse, Michelle Riley, looks at that. and has the information right there. She follows up with families, but she never gives us the details on that
Okay,
for privacy reasons. We're just allowed to know the high-level numbers.
okay.
So I can't answer if they're sick or hospitalized. Or,
You don't know, okay. Okay, I just know from our experience, my experience being in part of a school that has a lot of people reporting that they have the COVID case, but most of the majority have been asymptomatic. So it's just something to think about, but without the real numbers, it's hard to make any decision based on that, and I get that, but it's something to think about, because it is, when the testing goes up, we may find more people, of course, but if they're not being affected by it, it's I don't know how you can really do anything with that information, but.
But, and just for clarification for myself, and so I understand, asymptomatic,
Means they have it, but they're
They
not
have
showing
it.
any symptoms.
but there's still a spreader.
Right, they can be spread, yeah.
So a positive case either way is not a good thing, I guess, is, just so I understood that correctly.
And I mean, the way I see it is, it's not for me to determine whether I'm okay with you being asymptomatic. You're still a positive case.
So, Julie, to your point, yes, the absolute numbers are increasing, but we're testing more. But if you look at the positivity rate, so the percentage of tests that are coming back positive, that's also significantly increased. Back in September, we were just under 2%. Now we're at 6.
Page is that on?
It's the previous page.
4.
Right, so.
and that's what your review team looks at weekly.
Correct. That's what we look at every week. Yeah, and those numbers, tie in, 2% in September, 6% now. It's 3 times as many people. We're seeing cases 3 times as frequently as we were back then. So it's very consistent. It's not just we're testing more, so we're seeing a higher number.
Right.
The percentage is increasing also, which is telling and gives me concern.
And Ryan, in the review committee meeting, is it more of a qualitative discussion of what does the whole picture look like, or are you just looking at numbers? Can you just give us a little bit more about kind of how that meeting works?
So there's a presentation of, if you
You've shared it before.
Yeah, so there's this slide and the next slide that we discuss. Sarah Linzick prepares the numbers. She works with Carrie and Michelle, and she'll present the numbers to us. There's some additional information that we'll review, sort of a breakdown of where these numbers lie that, we don't want to release just due to potential identifying people. And it's really an informative session. We're discussing the numbers. Up until the past couple of weeks, we really haven't been too concerned because the numbers have been okay. They weren't great. They're increasing, but I think now that we're up in the 50s and pushing 60 cases, and positivity rate is 6%, there's some concern. We don't talk about what should we do about it. That's really the role of this committee. So there aren't discussions like that. Yeah, it's more informative. It's there's a teachers union rep. She'll bring this information back to the union so they're aware of it. We present on it here. So that's really what it is.
Can I piggyback one point on that before Rob jumps in? Just so the community is aware, if we were to see a spike of 8 to 10 kids at one school, I would make the decision unilaterally as a superintendent to close that one school, not necessarily the entire district. So I want parents to know that we will react immediately, and then this committee will then make a decision whether we're going to change our learning model entirely at that point. But I don't want parents to think that numbers are going up and we have to wait 2 weeks for a school committee meeting to happen. That's not the case. If we need to react, we're going to react, and then we'll come back to this body to make a decision about the whole district or the whole learning model. But we are closely watching each school and the cases at each school. And I think that's part of the reason why we haven't done anything yet, because the numbers haven't necessarily warranted that.
So that's a great point. And up until now, outside of people living in the same household, we haven't seen close contacts testing positive as a result of that exposure to these cases. So even though, we have positive cases, thankfully, up to this point, they haven't been spreading it to the close contacts within the schools. Rob?
Thank you. Thank you for that answer, Dr. Flanagan. I do know of a certain school district that had to shut down its early education center for this week and next, exactly because of that. There was a spike in cases within the building, and three kindergarten classes and one preschool class were completely shut down for the next couple of weeks. Obviously, the smaller kids, they have a different situation where they're not required to wear masks. So in that situation, it can spread a whole lot faster. So that was taken into consideration. I know of a lot of different districts in both Massachusetts and New Hampshire who anticipating a spike in numbers, and I'm sure you've heard this as well, that a lot of them have gone full remote till just after Martin Luther King Day, just to keep those numbers down in those districts. Now, obviously, it's something I don't want to see, because for the same exact reasons that everyone is saying, our kids learn better when they're in school. So I absolutely have to support Mr. Tinnerella's suggestion that we table the idea of increasing the number of days that our kids in school until next year. I think the January meeting is a perfect time for that. We'll start having we'll have the data from Thanksgiving then. We'll start getting the numbers for after the winter break. And quite frankly, I think we could vote on this tonight. I don't think we have to wait until next week. I would even make that proposal that we hold that vote tonight after everyone has had their say.
So, I agree. I would recommend we push this off till January. Before we make that vote, I know there's a handful of people here who want to speak. I think in fairness to them, we should consider what they have to say. I think we should hold off on the vote until they've had an opportunity to speak.
I'm sorry, who else needs to speak?
With the public's here, we have people outside waiting to speak.
Can we have them come in and speak tonight?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, no.
I'm saying hold off until later in the night,
Absolutely.
until after they've had a chance to speak.
I agree with
so
that.
we hear from
Definitely.
the community who wanted to speak tonight and incorporate their thoughts.
So can I just, before the community or they come in, I just want to get clarity. We had a survey that went out. Parents seemed in the higher range were more willing to send their student to school in an increased capacity, either K and 1, and then 2 through 12, then extra day. And I think the discussion here is saying to defer that decision until January on the survey results, making us make a decision or having us make a decision to start January 4th with that new model anyway, because that's what the recommendation was, I think, at the last meeting, was the January 4th date is when the extra Wednesday for the cohorts would be done, reverse same, whatever. And then the kindergarten and first grade would also be that. So delaying the vote, okay. I just wanted to get clarity on that. I have it, thank you.
I just wanted to clarify, I know, Rob, you mentioned the younger students don't have to wear masks. That's in that district. Our district, we require all students to wear masks.
I agree with that.
I just want to make that clarification.
I think we should. It's just that it can be very difficult with the younger kids to keep them on. I mean, they're naturally motion. They move a whole lot more while they're in classes. They fall off. I mean, I'm in this early education center that got closed, okay? I'm in the classrooms a lot. I see what happens with these kids, you know? And they're close together a lot of times. They go out in the playground. It's impossible to keep them away from each other. But yeah, I agree. I think we should be able to, but you know, naturally, I think it's just against what they do.
No, I understand.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Well, 1 second, Tony, sorry. Mike, to your point, the survey results are heavily in favor of adding these days. I think the timing of the survey compared to what the numbers have done since then, I'm not sure how relevant that is. If we do decide to delay this vote till January 12th, I think it would make sense to retake the survey the first week of January, see what the numbers are, and so we have a more current sense of what the community's interested in, given the current conditions. I don't think a survey sent middle November is really relevant in January. Fine, okay. Sorry, Tony, go ahead.
To the two educators that work in our district, Dr. Flag and Dr. Branco, how do you feel about delaying our vote this evening? If you would give us your opinions or opinion.
Is that a loaded question?
But we don't work in the district. We're not in this building every day or the schools. So
My response, and Mark, I'll let you speak after. Yeah, I believe kids are better off in person, without a doubt. But I'm concerned about the delay between the testing and the notification. And I don't want us to make decisions that aren't based on the most current, accurate data. So Thanksgiving testing right now, if it takes 12 days from November 25th, that might not even come out till December 8th, right, whatever it is. That's not going to reflect on any report potentially until even after this committee will take action. So, you know, if there really is a concern about a spike at the holidays or Thanksgiving, we can't get that information right now. I'm also curious about, you know, we're still looking at the big puzzle. And I don't know what transportation looks like. You know, we've just gotten these numbers, we've just gotten these kids, and now we're starting to figure out how many seats do we have in the buses. So that advisory is still out there. So it's wonderful for anyone to come on TV and say, I think kids should be back full in person. That's great. But there are a series of obstacles and barriers that we have to overcome in a pretty quick time. And we have to do that in being mindful of that we have 2/3 of our staff that are age 50 or over. That was a stat that we gave last time. So we need to think of the whole learning community. So I am all for in-person learning. And I think it's not necessarily the wisest thing to do right now, given where we are. That's my opinion.
So I agree with the overall opinion. I think to piggyback on the point, there was a 4-day weekend, right? That was a 4-day break. And we're waiting on delayed data, and we see numbers increasing a little bit all over. You're talking about a 10 to 12 day extended break. I can't remember exactly, but it's more than double the amount of time we were just out for. So if you extrapolate that out, you could make some kind of educated guess that we should learn from Thanksgiving and be predictable about what could happen over the December break. Wholeheartedly agree that we need to find a way to get kids back more in person when it feels right. I agree that I'm not sure it feels right to pull that trigger now with delayed data and a holiday break coming up. I would like to see more data. I would like to ask parents again. I agree with also asking a second time after we've come back. And we've talked a lot about how many times can we make a shift over the course of one school year. And I don't want to. I really don't ever want to step backwards unless we're forced to by the virus. And right now we're not being forced to. So I would rather hold and take a step forward as opposed to step forward, back, and make 3 or 4 changes that impacts teachers and kids.
And if I could just make one more point, Mark, can you go down 2 slides, please? Stop right there. This is the updated Massachusetts metrics about what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. 3rd bullet down, schools in red communities should implement hybrid models while maximizing in-person learning. That is exactly where we are. We're doing exactly what we need to do. And my goal is to maintain and protect hybrid learning. We do not want to go remote. We want to keep our kids coming in person. And I think anything we can do to keep our heads down and keep trucking along as best we can, keep these kids coming in person, I think the better off we're gonna be. I just think it's good for the kids. I think it's hard. It's hard. Our teachers are out straight. Our administrators are out straight. Our nurses, God bless them, are out straight. They're all doing everything they can. And I think we just need to keep it going as best we can. I think that's where we are as a community.
Thank you.
Anybody have any other comments, questions? Okay, so prior to taking a vote, I don't know if you need a motion to pause this and, yes. So we need a,
We need a motion to take this as comments and questions at this time.
okay,
I'll
so,
make a motion to take visitor comments and questions at this time.
discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0-0. So the people watching at home, we have the visitors in a separate room to maintain social distancing. So that's why there's a slight delay.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Wall, 58 Mission Road, and I am also a teacher over at TES. And I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of a large group of teachers at TES. We'd like you to please accept this letter to voice our concerns as teachers about the possible adaptation of a second hybrid learning model. We understand that this model would allow students only 2 extra days a month. However, the impact on educators and the sustainability of this model will strain an already difficult learning environment. Teachers want students back in school and to teach in our regular model. As we cannot have them back full-time, we are just putting a Band-Aid on a much bigger issues that arise from a hybrid model. The addition of 2 days a month creates more concerns that many people may not realize. This model is not easy and is far from perfect. Teachers are working under vastly different circumstances than we ever have before. We are putting so much time above and beyond normal expectations at the expense of our own families, personal lives, and health. So while we have tried to make this school year look good thus far, it has come with tireless work beyond that most people see. A few points we would like to give specific attention to are the amount of work, planning, and preparation this new model places on teachers far outweighs the benefits of just 2 extra days a month for students. We have been working very hard with the current model, and to now change this model feels like we will need to take a step back to make another new model work. Our elementary age students are creatures of habit and work well when they know what to expect from their school day and schedules. Teachers have worked every day to build these routines and schedules to help students feel grounded in their learning environment. To change this again will create more confusion for students who have come to rely on the schedules we have worked hard to build. Wednesdays are the only day where all kids, remote and hybrid, are on an even playing field. The technology needed to teach to in-person students while simultaneously teaching it to at-home students is much more complicated than teaching to just one group. Wednesdays are also days teachers check in with fully remote students. Some teachers use these days to schedule reading time with fully remote students that don't get face-to-face time with them, or they might use this time to reteach concepts to students who are struggling in certain areas. Wednesdays were set up by design to be a day to schedule meetings, collaborate with teams, and have consultation meetings with related service providers. Without this day, we will be out of our classrooms more and require substitute coverage, which is already scarce. Teachers' planning time has been drastically changed this year. With this concurrent, synchronous model, all of our in-person, hands-on lessons now have to be digitalized, which is very time-consuming and takes much preparation and organization. We are not able to plan or work in our own room as specialists take the place in their classrooms as they are not able to travel around the building. We have to make this time up on our own so we have access to our rooms and the materials within. Wednesdays were used for deep cleaning, as well as to provide a 24-hour lag time between cohorts. Is this no longer the case? Are we no longer concerned about that deep cleaning and the lag time? With COVID cases on the rise, it seems it would be imperative to have that break between cohorts sharing the same seating. We are already in person 4 days a week. The governor wanted more in-person districts who are fully remote. The Commissioner of Education wanted towns with low COVID numbers to increase time in person. We already utilize an in-person hybrid model, and our numbers are higher than the 16 towns he sent letters to asking them to go in person more hours. In fact, as mentioned earlier, over this Thanksgiving break, we have been alerted to multiple new cases reported in our district, and along with another additional case just today.
Jen, I'm gonna have to stop you there.
Sure.
You have 4 minutes.
Okay. I have a copy of the letter here, 27 signatures from teachers who support the idea of holding off and not adding that Wednesday into the hybrid model. I have a question, just leave it here so it's not being passed.
Give it a minute. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Mark, you want to see if anybody else wants to speak?
Any other issues, comments, questions?
Say this again.
Yep, she's gonna keep reading, I think.
All right, so before the next speaker begins, I should have said this before the previous speaker. Speakers shall identify themselves by name and address prior to commenting. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to present their material. All comments shall be addressed through the chair, and to ensure compliance with open meeting law, privacy laws, and other legal obligations, the committee will not engage with the speaker or with one another in deliberation on comments as they are presented during the public comment period.
Hi.
Go ahead.
So I didn't know I was speaking, but we didn't get to finish our letter, so I'm going to do that. So Jen Goulet, 4 Mahler Circle, and I am also a 4th grade teacher at TES. So this is just in addition to that letter, if that's okay. So in summary, we the teachers of elementary school students do not see an added benefit of students coming an extra 2 days per month in this hybrid model. In fact, for the reasons stated above, we feel it would have a negative impact on your educators. Your teachers are going above and beyond to make the most of this situation. We want the best possible learning experience for our kids, but it would be very remiss of us not to be honest about our current situation. This current hybrid model creates a very stressful and overwhelming work environment. The sustainability of this model should be considered, as the decision you make could ultimately strain an already difficult learning and teaching situation. We want to be clear that we want our students back in person. We want them back. However, without being able to have each student back right now, 5 days a week in person, changing the current hybrid model to another hybrid model will not alleviate the problems that arise with this type of learning environment. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments or questions?
That's it?
All set.
Thank you, Dr. Branco. So, to resume item 8A, heard from teachers who they're not in favor of the updated hybrid model.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to extend the current hybrid model until we meet again on January 12th, where we can revisit it.
Give me a second. Second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 7-0-0. Thank you. Subcommittee update. Policy subcommittee to be discussed later in the agenda. Personnel.
Not at this time.
Thank you. Unfinished business, 8B, first read policy. So the following policies are being proposed as a first read tonight. Policy 3.4, non-discrimination and harassment. 5.8, eligibility for participation in school programs. 5.29, homeless students, enrollment rights and services. 5.33, educational opportunities for military children. 5.34, educational opportunities for children in foster care. Seek a motion to accept these policies as a first read.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It carries 7-0-0. New business, THS Winter Athletics. Is there a TV on somewhere? They're displaying the meeting for the visitors. So instead of trying to get away, room.
To the way.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Mr. Ogden.
Jeff Ogden, principal at Tyngsborough High School. I'm joined by Athletic Director Ann Palumbo. Tonight, we will be providing with an overview for the winter sports season and seeking your approval to move forward. Ann's going to take it over from here, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, everyone. How you doing?
Good evening.
All right, we'll go to the next slide. So we're hoping to have the following sports available for this winter. Girls and boys basketball. Girls basketball will have a middle school waiver. We're looking to co-op again this winter with ice hockey with Drake It, alpine ski with Brad Dunstable, and gymnastics with Chelmsford. If you look on the right, those are the numbers of athletes. So ice hockey would be 11 athletes, student athletes, alpine ski 2, and gymnastics 3.
Those are the Tyngsborough student numbers.
Tyngsborough students that are going with it.
And can you just tell a little bit more about what the middle school waiver is and what the numbers project to be for girls and boys basketball?
So girls numbers are low this year. So we'll have, as of right now, projected high school students would be 14 players that are potentially playing for high school. So to be able to have a JV team, we need a middle school waiver for middle schoolers to come up and play, so that we could sustain a JV team for this winter.
And that's in 8th grade or 7th and 8th?
7th and 8th grade.
7th and 8th grade.
Yeah, to sustain the program. Sports we're unable to offer this year. Unfortunately, swim and dive will not be able to offer it.
We're not able to access the pool they typically use at Greater Lowell. Extensively went through a lot of schools around the area, contacted a lot, but they were either full or they were not opening their pool to outside organizations. We cannot offer wrestling. Is not the EA did not approve it and clear it as a level 3 sport, so technically it's a level 2. MIA approved to move it to the spring season, but it still needs a lot of hoops to jump through to meet the EA standards. And unfortunately, middle school basketball will not be able to host it this year. Midwatch League decided not to go forward with middle school sports this winter.
If I could just speak to the swim and dive, I know that I brought it before this committee, I think in early November, that we were having a really hard time finding a pool. And I just want to commend Ms. Palumbo that I know she worked extensively and tirelessly to try to find a pool, but we can't find anything within a 45-minute drive. And to have our kids drive in 45 minutes to practice and swim, and to be honest with you, there aren't going to be any meets, are there?
There won't be any meets. Any meet, it'll be virtual. If they're going to have a meet, it'll be virtual. So people will be at their own pool with the referee, and then the opponent school will be at their pool with the referee scoring them.
So it wasn't from a lack of effort that we just couldn't find a pool. So.
And then other important information, our season's gonna start on December 14th, it'll conclude February 19th. Our competitions will start on the 8th, but we, as our pod, won't have our competitions start until possibly the 12th, Tuesday the 12th of November, pushing it back just a little bit further. All sport-specific modifications have been posted on the MIA, so hockey, gymnastics, basketball, and all those have been sport-specific. If anyone wants to look at it, it's a lot of reading, have some fun on the MIA website. And then each league will go through COVID guidelines on top of what the MIA set forth. So facilities, game management, COVID captains, kind of everything that we did in the fall. It just kind of, now that we've already done it, now we can ramp it up and kind of have better management in our facilities moving forward. Schedules, each team will compete for 2 games in a week, and it'll be the same teams competing against. So say we play a team on Littleton on Tuesday, we'll play them on Friday. So that way we're not crossing with different schools within that week. So if something comes up, we'll know exactly who we're playing against that week. And unfortunately, with being inside, District 2 and 3 has decided not to have spectators come inside our buildings. This is not just District 3. I know reached around to other communities and other teams. I know that local schools are also not, NBC is not allowing spectators as well. So it's not just us, it's kind of global.
So it's not Central Massing,
No,
chunks of Louisville, none of them having spectators either?
No, it's okay. I think it's, a lot of schools were already struggling to let 2 parents in outside, and now we're inside. All gyms is different side. There are some big gyms, there are some small gyms. So to just keep it safe for our competitors and for athletes to compete on a safe playing field, this is the best option we believe for them.
If I could, do we have an opportunity to film these games or show them live?
We do. We have a Pixel system that streams live in our gym. We got that last year, so all of our games will be.
So we could put out a schedule to all the parents to
There's a
our public
subscription
TV.
cost to this.
Subscription cost to it, yeah.
So the parent would have to pay for the season, but they could watch all the kids' games live at home on the computer or TV.
We couldn't do it on our local station, Channel 8.
I don't know. I don't know what the copyright is. We can look into that though.
I'd like to see. I mean, if our parents can't come, our parents are paying for their children to play sports, and if they can't see it, I'd love to see all of our games on Channel 8. At least our home, obviously our home games, but.
So we have the affiliate, so it streams live, and then we also, the coaches have like a game film huddle and things like that, so the parents will be able to see the game, but we get to stream it live as well. So.
Yeah, we would have the option to put it on the local channel
After the
just
game.
not live.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are we sure that all facilities have the ability to stream? So away games.
So not all schools have the Pixel system, so within that, in our core, we're working, in our pods, we're working about having, finding a way for them to do that, so if they don't offer it, then they'll use some sort of like Facebook Live, stream Facebook Live, so we've got to find a way to provide that.
I know the hockey rinks have something called Live Barn,
Yep.
but a lot of the rinks have the cameras off.
Yeah.
So it's great if you have a subscription, but the cameras are off, so it's useless.
Yeah.
Most of the schools are looking at all the options now as the state boundaries came off and said you could have even spots at school, so they're trying to track down ways to get on for parents to be able to watch.
So I mean, maybe that's something, even if they typically don't have the cameras on, they would make an exception for these schools.
Yeah.
What are the transportation guidelines?
So it would be the same, so it would be one team, so say a varsity basketball team would travel on the bus, and then max 22 students, athletes per bus. But basketball numbers are small, and that's a max 12 players and 2 or 3 coaches. So we'd be okay transportation-wise.
Thank you.
So I know in the fall, there was concern if a town was designated red 3 weeks in a row, they weren't allowed to play anymore, and then we quickly realized, how useless this color designation was. But they've since revamped the metrics. Are these color code designations going to impact the availability of these students to perform? Is that something that needs to be decided?
So it'll be a district-based decision, and whether or not continue playing. So typically, if the schools, if we're hybrid and we're still moving, we'll still be able to compete.
Okay.
And Similarly, if we have, like we had one of our teams this fall, we had a positive case in that team had to shut down for 2 weeks, the entire team, because they're practicing together, they're close contacts of each other. But doesn't mean the season's canceled. Once you get a positive case, it's a 2-week pause until it's clear.
Has there been any conversation from other towns looking at our numbers saying we're concerned about playing against you where you guys are in the red?
So within our pod, we've had that discussion where we were red, and it was more of it's what's going on in our schools, because it's the town numbers that dictate what's the color code, but they want to know basically how many, are your athletes being exposed? Do you have high numbers in your school? At that point it was 1 or 2 in the district and building up, but it wasn't affecting our athletic facilities and our buildings that we have. So it's more of
So using the context to make the decisions.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any other questions?
And this is proposed to be our pods. So it'll play Groton, Dunstable, Littleton, North Middlesex, Bloomberg, and we have Park Charter in the fall, but they don't have winter sport, they don't have basketball, so they were out, and now we have St. Bernard's that joined our group. And they are based in Fitchburg.
Excellent.
This would just be for boys and girls basketball.
Basketball.
Hockey will play in the MVC.
Yeah, so hockey's NBC, PCL usually, but they're going to stick to just the NBC.
So just another point of clarification, 11 Tyngsborough students on that hockey team. How many Draken students do we know?
So they have estimated 15 players coming back.
All right, so it's a cooperative team. We share with them. They're going to play around that valley.
And where is their home rink?
So they will be playing this year out of Saugus. We've got Saugus Ice Time. Typically our home rink is Ice Center up in Salem, but with the ban again of going over borders and playing interscholastic competitions over in New Hampshire, we had to apply for the Ice Time. And so we found some ice at Saugus Arena.
Nice.
Any other questions?
Can our parents social distance in Saugus Arena?
And the NBC said no spectators.
It's funny, I've seen my son plays hockey, and I've seen some of these rinks that have tons of room. They rope off sections and still force you into a little section. I don't understand the logic.
Thank you very much.
So,
Yes.
at this time, I'll seek a motion to approve the winter athletic season proposal as presented by the high school administration.
I'll make that motion.
Seconded.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 7-0-0. Thank you, Ms. Palumbo.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Finance, Mr. Messina.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For signing of bills, 11 bill warrants were presented to the committee tonight. I do have them all back approved, and in your drive is the list of warrant numbers, accounts, and amounts. For signing payroll, nothing tonight. We'll do catch up at your next meeting on the 15th. And one item under other that I just wanted to share with the committee, Justin Sulzbach, our assistant town administrator, basically oversees the green community grants for the town. He was walking with a representative of National Grid to look at some potential projects throughout the town, and the money in the green communities is not as rich as it was in past years, but they did identify a project at the elementary school where we didn't have green community money to use, but Justin had a workup as to what sort of rebate might be out there to light the elementary school, and pay for that with some on-bill financing over 5 years. The whole project pricing is in your drive, but essentially it's an $87,000 project to relight the building. There's a $28,000 rebate on that, which brings the net cost down to $59,000. Estimate about $600 a month of annual savings against the $984 monthly cost. Will cost you about $373 a month additional on your electric bills over 5 years. We do save about $1,700 a year in maintenance with these new lights, as well as the up cost somewhere down the line where you would have to replace all the existing lights anyway. So Justin thought it was a very good deal. Unfortunately, no green community money, but we've done a number of on-bill projects like this with National Grid to get some lighting projects done at other schools, and I think it's a good plan for you as well as for the town.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's it.
School committee discussion? Rob?
First off, I would like to apologize to my fellow school committee members. This year has been very challenging for me to make a few meetings. And not being here definitely hurts me, hurts the committee as a whole, and I apologize for that. I want to thank you for your indulgence of last week when Mrs. Stanton read my statement. And thank you very much, Mrs. Stanton, for reading that for me. I know it was long or verbose, and you were probably very tired after reading all of that. But again, thank you very much for indulging me in that. I thought it was important to really take a look at what the commissioner and the governor were referencing, and to make sure that everybody was aware of what actually was being stated in those studies. Unfortunately, our next meeting, December 15th, is that what it is?
12th?
That one I will also have to miss. That will be the very last one that I will have to miss this year. My budget responsibilities in my position have dominated my time for the past couple of weeks. So I would like to take this opportunity to wish all of the community members, students, and staff, and all of you a very happy holiday season coming up.
On to
That's
you.
all I have.
Thank you. I may miss December 15th. I may be traveling, just make you aware. So unless you provide a remote dial in, maybe you'll get in touch with me, let me know if that's possible. Be safe, stay safe. Merry Christmas if you celebrate that. Enjoy.
Good.
Mr. Messina?
I'm all set tonight, thank you.
Also, thank you. I'd like to thank Dr. Flanagan, Dr. Branco, and your staffs for putting together that presentation. As much as I think every one of us wants our kids back in school, 5 days a week, full in-school learning, we do have to look at the numbers. We do have to look at the safety of our students and our staff. So thank you very much for that. And the weather's changing, so we got snow coming Sunday, Monday. Watch for our children at our school buses. Thank you.
Definitely. Well, it's funny, I came in here feeling like it's going to be a tough sell to move forward with the additional hybrid because of the numbers of what's happening. And then when I read, what you put together is hopeful. However, I feel that we made a good, prudent decision because I think the next months there's a lot of things changing. There's the vaccination coming through. There's more, but on both sides, things changing both ways. The vaccination, however, there's people more inside. So it'll be a telling time, and we'll have to just hold tight and see. Because also a parent with the teachers, I do understand from a teacher's point of view how making changes does impact what they're doing a lot. And it is a very difficult time right now for them, but then to put additional work on top of them, it can be, take them to a stress point, and we don't want to do that either. So it's good I think we made a good decision tonight.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd also like to thank both of you, Dr. Flanagan and Dr. Branco, for all the work that you put into the presentation and answering the many questions here tonight and that we've emailed to you or called you with. So thank you for your patience and thank you for getting the information to us. I think it was the right decision to defer the decision you know, the impact of Thanksgiving won't be felt for another few days. And so it'll be very telling to see what that is. And we can learn from that as we go into our January discussion. So thank you.
So I received a very sad phone call yesterday afternoon, and it was news from a colleague of mine and a good friend of mine who's announced his retirement. So Steve Manning, our school resource officer, has been a pillar in this district. He's been a pillar in this community, and I had the opportunity to work very closely with Steve when he started as a school resource officer back in the early 2000s. I was the assistant principal at the high school at the time. So we had a lot of interactions together. And I don't know if there is a more loyal, stand-up, just authentic, genuine, good soul than Steve Manning. He's a great, great man. And I wish him truly all the best in his retirement. And I want to, on behalf of the entire Tyngsborough Public School community, Steve, you've done so much for Tyngsborough Public Schools. I mean it. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best. So, Sergeant Manning, if you see him, give him attaboy and congratulations. He wasn't under personnel because he works for the police department.
Fair enough. It may be sad news, but I think it's great, joyous news for him.
Joyous for him. Joyous for him. Sad for us.
We all look forward to that someday.
Sad for us.
I salute you.
A huge loss for our district.
So congratulations, Sergeant Manning, on your retirement. I want to echo the thoughts. Thank you, Dr. Flanagan. Thank you, Dr. Branco. I also want to mention the work Sarah Wenzik does behind the scenes, weekly, collecting this data, putting it into this easily digestible format. She's really the one who runs the weekly COVID updates. She takes the data from the state. She talks to Carrie and Michelle from the Board of Health, and she brings everything together, and she's the one who presents it. So I think there's a lot of work behind the scenes that she's doing that people don't realize. So I just want to say thank you to her for all her hard work. I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. There is no need for executive session tonight, so I will seek a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 7-0. Have a great night, everybody.